Hey everyone, so this is the first video I've made in quite some time, and the subject of this video is really going to be a preview of how the new scripting system works in Vixen. So if you've been following my channel, I've been working on a open source game engine as well as a corresponding editor, but the brunt of the work that I've been doing, the most of the work that I've been doing in the past 6 to 12 months has been on the engine itself. Serves no point to have an editor if you don't have an engine to interface with. So now the scripting system, if you haven't already figured out, is a Lua scripting system. What I've been doing is I've been writing the whole engine in C++, and I expose the C classes, C++ classes to Lua using a library, another open source library called Lua Interface. So now what I'll be showing here is basically how I'm going to set up a quick camera, a scripted camera. Now the way Vixen works is it works on these scene objects. If you've used Unity, Unity works on like a game object system, so everything in a scene is a game object with components. Vixen uses a similar system. So if I run this, what I should get is this. Now, what's shown here is basically a floor, textured floor, and a raptor model that's spinning around in the center. But we kind of want to see what that raptor looks like, right? So what we're going to do is write a script that allows us to control the camera. Now to do this, I've exposed parts of the engine to Lua. So what you can do is, first you can grab the game object. So each script that's attached to a game object has a this table. So Lua functions on tables. Now, when I attach a script to a game object, it gets this table created, and then this game object variable inside of it, I store the actual pointer to the game object that's in the scene. So next thing we can do is get the transform. So I believe it is get transform? I think it is, yeah. So transform. So now we have the transform. And what we can do is get some quick keyboard controls in. So if input. So this is another basically table that I've created, and it contains some static functions for doing some basic input. So what we'll do here is we'll get the forward vector of the transform, because if we're going to be rotating or moving, we want to actually know the forward direction of the transform. So we'll get the forward vector, and then all we have to really do is translate by that vector times delta time, because we're going to want to have smooth animation independent of frame rate, and then dt, so delta time, gets passed in. And then let's actually have like a camera speed. So this doesn't exist yet, speed, it's not in the table. So what we can do is when we enable the script, we can set speed to 40, let's say. So this will run when the camera is enabled, and now we have that. So if I were to run this, I can now move into the screen. So let's quickly do the reverse of that so we can move back and forth. And keep in mind all of this is interpreted, so I don't have to recompile the engine at all. And actually I could theoretically write code that allows me to reload the script at runtime, and then the logic will change. Now I multiply by -1 here because I want to move backwards and not forwards. So here's a quick example. Now we can move back and you can see the raptor. So let me move back forward in. And let me quit for a second. So what we're going to do is just implement left and right movement. So key press dot A. And we're going to grab the right vector. So depending on how we rotate the camera, we always want to know what the relative right vector, perpendicular vector to the up and forward is. So transform, translate, and we're just going to do the same thing. Now for this, since it's A, we want to go left, which is the opposite of right. So again, we're going to multiply by -1 here. And I'm just going to do a copy paste and change this to D. So now we're going to actually move right, so we don't need the negative. And if I run this, I should be able to move left, right, forward, back. So that's pretty neat, right? So now what we're going to do is do the final handle mouse look controls. So we want to be able to pitch and yaw our camera around so that we can look around in the scene. So what I'll do is I'll grab the delta X, which, well, first, as you can see, when I run this, the mouse doesn't show up. That's because I'm locking it to the center of the screen. I do that because if I want to be able to move the camera, I want the mouse to be clamped to the center so that I can then get the offset from the center. So that sort of can calculate the difference in mouse movement per frame. And we use that to rotate by. So delta X is equal to input mouse delta X. And here I'm just going to throw some magic numbers. What these are basically is this is the dimensions of that window, the game window. I still haven't exposed that to the scripting engine yet, but for now you can just use I can just use hard-coded values. It's actually is it in here? No. It's actually defined in the config file for the game itself. So 1280, delta X, yeah, okay. And this is 720/2. And now what we can actually do is we can just rotate the transform in the X direction by delta Y times, and we're going to want a mouse look scale value. So what I'll do is I'll create a quick one here, and I'm going to make it like 0.005. And now I'm going to rotate Y by delta X. So there you go. Now we're rotating the X by delta Y because that's actually the pitch. And then Y, we want the delta X because that's the left to right movement. So if we run this now, what we should get is we should be able to move around and fly around like this, like a freeform camera. Now if I were to limit the movement in the WS, so basically on the forward vector, if I were to change the Y value to 0 every frame, we wouldn't be able to go up. It would effectively simulate a first-person camera where you're locked down here and you can't move anywhere else. You can look around, but you can't move up. So that's a quick peek at the scripting system. Now, it's not just the camera that has a script. Let's actually look at the Raptor for a second. There's a Raptor script, and that's actually what's rotating that Raptor. And there's some neat little velocity stuff here. If I press spacebar, the Raptor jumps. So, I mean, it's the beginnings of a potentially more complex Lua scripting system. As the engine expands, more and more stuff will be exposed. So stay tuned for more, and thanks for watching. I'm sorry I can't make tutorials, but keep your eye out for more Vixen stuff.